Let's learn about working with text boxes. When I look at this template, what I'm looking at are many elements layered on top of each other. Most of them are pictures. This back here is a picture, this is a picture, this is a picture. All of these are, except for this and this. These are both text boxes. And I'm going to show you how to create them and how to change them. So I'm going to go for a new slide and make it blank. And what I do to create one is hit Insert, Text Box, and then I draw it out. And I'm going to enter some text in there. So I've filled it with a bit of text. I'm now going to highlight it. I can either highlight all the text and go up here and change the font, or I can just click the outside of the text box and I can change the font that way. So I've changed the font and I'm going to make it larger to make it easier to look at. Now I've got a few of these identified as bullet points, but they're not yet. So I'm going to highlight the ones that I want to be bullet points and I'll go up here and click on the bullet icon and that turns them into bullet points. Now right now all of this is a bit squished together and I like to add some spacing so that I can make each item stand out a little bit better. And so one way of doing that, and this is a way I would not recommend, would be to just make it double spaced. So I clicked on paragraph and I'm going to change that to double to show you what that looks like. All that really does is it sort of stretches everything out. By putting an equal amount of space between every single line, it doesn't really help much to make the individual elements stand out. So I'm going to highlight it again, go back into paragraph. I'm going to go back to single spacing. But what I'm going to do now is put an extra space before each item. I'm going to make it 18 because this is pretty large font. This is going to be 18 points between each item, and you'll see what that looks like now. Here's the difference. Every bullet point is still single spaced, but now there's extra space in between them. So it really helps to make these stand out. Doing it this way can really help people to see your points and also see what information is grouped together versus separated from something else. You'll notice over here that there's a panel called Format Shape. I'm going to close out of that just so that you can see how I got it. If I right click on this text box, I choose Format Shape and I get that. I'm going to show you one other thing about these text boxes that can be a little bit tricky. I click Text Options and then this text box here. So I'll stretch this out a bit and notice that it bounces right back. That's because it's currently set to resize shape to fit text. That's a perfectly fine way to do that unless you really want your text to fit in a specific area, in which case you could choose Do Not Auto Fit, in which case if I stretched it out then it just stays like it is. Sometimes that's a little bit easier if you're doing multiple text boxes and you want them to all be about the same size. The one option that I wouldn't choose is Shrink Text on Overflow, and I'll show you what that looks like. When I do that and then I make the text box smaller, it actually makes the text smaller, and if I get even smaller, it keeps shrinking it. The problem with this is that if you have multiple text boxes, especially across slides, and you've got more text in one and less text in another, all of your fonts are going to be inconsistent with each other in terms of their size, and it looks very awkward. It's actually better to either break your text up over multiple text boxes, over multiple slides if you have too much, or shorten the way you say things. But to just squish it and make it smaller is not really a good solution. So I would really prefer to stick with Do Not Auto Fit so that the font size stays exactly the way you intended it to be. And then you can decide how much text you have. There are lots of other options that we could look at, but I'm just going to stick with those for right now. I prefer to have a text box that is transparent. I'm going to click up here on Shape Format. I could click to fill the shape. I could give it a color. But what I have actually often preferred to do is give it no fill at all, which is this. And then I use other elements like in this. These are both transparent text boxes, and I've put other things behind them like a photo or a shape or something like that. Once you have a text box that's styled the way you like, it's a good idea to just copy these and paste them onto other slides, or even if you're going to have multiple text boxes on the same slide. For example, let's suppose I'm going to have two lists. What I can do once I have this the way I like it is I click on the outside, then right click, then choose Copy, then just click outside of it, right click again, and choose Paste. One of them is to paste it as a picture. I don't want to do that. I'm going to just paste it with the correct formatting. It layers it right on top of the other one, but all you have to do is just grab it and move it. Notice when I wiggle it around, sometimes these lines appear. That's telling me that it is aligned across the top. Another way of aligning is to choose both text boxes, and I'm going to hold the Shift key down to do that. And then I'm going to go into Arrange, Align, and then Align Top. And now they're both lined up with each other nicely. This works really well, especially when you're looking at a slide that is like this, for example. I have many text boxes here. I've got 3 here. I aligned those, and then I aligned these. And there is also something that's called distribute. I'll go back to this. Let's imagine that I've got this box and this box, and maybe I want to have a third box. I probably can't fit 3 across here, so what I'm going to do is select both of them, and then I'm going to drag the size to this. I've made them both exactly the same size now, but smaller, but they're the same as each other. And maybe to make it fit better, I want to change this to 32.5. So now these are a more reasonable size. And maybe I want a third. So I'll go to here, I'll hit copy, click out of it, hit paste, and now I've got this third box. So I need these to be aligned and also distributed evenly across the slide. So I'm going to just make sure that they're not overlapping right now. And I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click all 3. Arrange. First, I'm going to align them across the top. And then I'm going to go back again, go back into Align, and choose Distribute Horizontally. This is going to put an even space in between the 3 of them. Now they're perfectly distributed. They're still really squished though. So I think what I would do in that case is reduce the font size one more time. That's better. I might make them just a bit more narrow. Okay. And then I'm going to distribute them one more time. It helps if you sort of get them roughly where you want them, and then make sure that they're actually distributed right. So I'll align them across the top one more time, distribute them again, and now they're all 3 distributed, but they're not centered as a group. If I keep them all highlighted and then just click on one, I can drag the 3 of them until the center one is centered. And now these 3 are evenly distributed. So you can see how you can play around with these things until you get your items nicely distributed. Let's take a look at how you do those things in Google Slides. So I'm in Google Slides now. Let me create a new slide, and it's going to be a blank one. I'm going to insert a text box. I've got that sample text here, and so I'm going to turn these into bullet points by highlighting them and clicking bullet. And of course you can go in here and change the styles and everything like that. Then we will go ahead and change the spacing from line to line. I'll click on this, and right here is line spacing. So again, I don't want to do any of these options. I'm going to choose add space before paragraph. I think this automatically adds like 6. So I'll go back in and customize that. This adds 10 actually, and I think what I had was 18. So there's that. Of course, I can change the font. I can change the size of it. The options in PowerPoint in terms of auto fit and the thing shrinking the way it was, Google Slides seems to sort of automatically let you just do what you want with the text box, and it keeps the font exactly the way it is. So they don't have that automatic shrinking built in as a default. So you can sort of leave that the way it is. So let's just copy this, and I'll click out of here and we'll paste it. And it pastes right on top. And I'm going to use my arrow keys this time to move it because I want to make sure I grab the right one. And how about I'm going to click paste again and do a third. So I've got these, and now I'm going to align them. I'll hold the Shift key, click all 3 of them. Google Slides draws an extra box around. I think it's meant to be a guide to sort of help you align them. So you could just drag them until they do, but actually they're all 3 selected now, so you couldn't do that. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go to Arrange, Align, and Top. So now they're all aligned on the top. And it's got this Distribute option so that you can make sure that they're all distributed evenly, horizontally. And now if I drag them as a group, eventually that red line shows up so that it shows that all 3 now are sort of centered across the top. So that is how you would do those things. And if you wanted a background in these, then I'll highlight all three again. That's this paint can right here for the fill color. So I click on that and then I can choose a color for the background if I wanted. If you are going to do this, I would highly recommend that you widen the padding. So that's over here, top and left. These are some of the options that we didn't really look at much in PowerPoint, but these are things that you can sort of play around with, just because extra padding really helps to give the reader a little bit more sort of white space around the text. And I think in this case, if I did that, I would want to reduce the font size just a bit and then make the text boxes fit a little bit more nicely around the edges there. So that is working with text boxes in Google Slides.